In the last 20 years, facilities have improved enormously, but ticket prices have skyrocketed. Are football fans being ripped off?
No, I don't think so. And if you don't mind me saying so, 16 million through the turnstile suggests that, on the whole, football fans don't feel like they're being ripped off. Because what they're paying for, I mean, yes, they're paying for an element of comfort and convenience and good facilities. And in my time, we've spent quite a bit of time trying to improve facilities, trying to improve grounds and the facilities in grounds. And indeed, believe it or not, the facilities for media in grounds. Skyrocketed is your word. If you don't mind me saying so, it sounds slightly OTT. They're getting exciting football, they're getting competitive football, and they're getting football and a service which brings them back week after week after week. Probably, would they all like it to be less? Of course they'd all like it to be less, but then the number of administrations would go even higher because clubs would keep spending even more money that they don't have. So there's got to be a balance struck, and I, as chairman, get very little complaints about the cost of going to see matches. Now, maybe the complaints are focused on the directors of the clubs, and frankly, that's where they ought to be directed, if they exist. Not a lot of point in complaining to me, because I don't, and the board doesn't control what clubs pay. There's an element of market forces about it.
The cost of travelling in Leagues 1 and 2 adds a huge cost to lower league football. Is it time for a return to some kind of regional setup at that level?
Well, if you have evidence that there is a movement in that direction, happy to hear it. It's not an issue that's raised with me.
When, if ever, will the Football League have full-time referees?
Don't know. Don't have a crystal ball. Can't tell you. Sorry.
Would you personally like to see video technology applied in football?
Goal line technology, yes. But that's been the Football League's view for years. We've been in contact and correspondence with FIFA for years. I have volunteered to Sepp Blatter that he can use some of our matches as pilot projects, in a real competition with real footballers and real fans. But so far, his view hasn't shifted at all.
In 30 seconds, what advice do you have for the person who'll take over from you?
I absolutely have no advice that I would care to share with you or anyone else other than him, and I will only share advice with him if he asks for it or she asks for it.
Is the fit and proper person test working?
Well, you asked what I feel about it. I feel a sense of satisfaction, to be honest, because we were the ones who pioneered fit and proper person tests. We had them before the FA or the Premier League. Do they make a difference? Positive difference? Yes, they do. Could they be even more intrusive and tighter? Yes, they could. If the clubs came to me and said, Chairman, here, take £1 million out of our money and set up a bigger, more intrusive, more investigative department, that could be done. You have to have a balance in these things. We made a decision recently which I think is going to have a very long-term effect in the league, long after everybody's forgotten who Brian Mahoney is. We made it a matter of policy that from now on, anybody who comes in to own one of our clubs, we have to know who the beneficial owner is. If we don't know who owns the club, they can't play in our league. That's a big decision because it affects people coming in. It's going to take some time for its effect to be felt, but in 5 or 10 years' time, the league will be more transparent, more open, and there will be less argument about fit and proper persons.
Which leads me to the question about transparency in terms of some clubs. It wasn't clear, such as maybe Leeds United, Notts County, up to now, who actually owned them.
That's absolutely right. And one of the big steps forward in the last 6 months is that some of us now do have an understanding of the ownership structure of both of those clubs. And that could never have been said by any of my predecessors. Could it be more open? Yeah, it could be more open. Should it be more open? That's for my successor and the board to decide.
In relation to Crystal Palace's financial crisis, could the Football League have done anything more to have seen that coming?
Seen it coming? That's a slightly strange question. That implies that we woke up one morning and were totally amazed to discover that Crystal Palace had gone into administration. That isn't actually the way we work. We are perfectly well aware of the financial arrangements or the financial circumstances of quite a number of our clubs. But we don't run the clubs. It's not our responsibility. Crystal Palace, like every other Football League club, has a legally constituted board of directors. They make the decisions. Occasionally they come to us and say, can you give us a bit of advice? And if they do, we give them advice. But the league is not responsible for the way any of the clubs conduct their business, as long as they conduct their business inside our regulations. They try to get outside our regulations. We get a bit sniffy with them. But otherwise, nothing to do with us, Gov, in the sense that they have legal directors who make the decisions and live with the consequences of the decisions, good and bad.
Now, assuming Portsmouth are relegated next year into the Championship, is it fair that a club in administration will be receiving huge parachute payments from the Premier League? That's
a matter for the Premier League, nothing to do with me. If you want to know the answer to that question, whether it's fair or not, you have to ask the Premier League. For 7+ years, I have made it a policy that I don't talk about the internal business of the Premier League, and you will have noticed that by and large they don't talk about the internal business of the Football League, and that's the way it's supposed to be. We welcome 3 ex-Premier League clubs each season. We get, if I may be permitted to say so, we get quite a lot of compliments from those clubs at the way we assimilate them into the Football League. And we will do that with the 3 that come down at the end of this season, just as we do it year after year after year. We have no view as to who the 3 should be. And when they come down to us, they get treated like everybody else under our regulations. Other matters you take up with the Premier League.